Is the new Rapsody album good? We're going to find out on this episode of the Mostly Existential Podcast. Super generic bass and as an intro. Welcome back, everybody, to the Mostly Existential Podcast, where we do music and film reviews. This week, we are checking out Rapsody's Laila's Wisdom. My name is Justin.
I'm still Kenneth.
And this is a weekly show every Thursday. New album or film. Really excited to bring it to you. This week we're checking it. Oh yeah, they're on Thursdays.
Oh, okay.
It was Tuesday. Now it's Thursday.
Okay. Thank you. Because it was just one of those things where I was uncapping my water to take a sip. And then I thought about it. I was like, wait, Thursday? Oh man, so yeah, coming live. Well, not really, but
no, not even a little.
Via your favorite audio device, straight to your ears.
For sure. Oh boy, getting all my tired yawns up in here.
Oh man, it's like 9 something in the morning.
It is as
busy
usual.
Days. Yeah, every time.
Yeah, we constantly live in 9 in the morning. We go to sleep for about 22 hours. We wake up around 8:30, go to bed at 10:30, and then the whole cycle repeats.
I'm tuckered out by then.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Exhausted.
Happy to be here. Kenneth, why don't you tell us a little bit about the new album and a little bit about the artist in question?
Okay, so Laila's Wisdom is the second studio album by one of my favorite MCs, Rapsody. Her first being The Idea of Beautiful, which released in 2012. In between that time, she did a bunch of mixtapes. A notable one that I actually first caught her on was She Got Game. She had a couple features on it. She had Mac Miller, I believe. She also had Chance the Rapper on there back in the day before Chance got huge. And she is signed to Jamla Records with legendary producer Ninth Wonder. Ninth Wonder just, I don't really have super a lot of information on hand with him, but he used to, he's just a legendary producer. He's done a lot of work, very renowned. I wish I had more info off the top. He did a handful of production on this record. Mm-hmm. He did a lot of the songs. I actually listed who they're produced by, cool. Or who each track is produced by.
Right.
So, yeah. So, and then there's her notable feature, which kind of got her a lot of buzz around her name, which was she was the only rap feature on To Pimp a Butterfly, which is obviously Kendrick Lamar's critically acclaimed album.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of got, more people talking about her. Deservedly so, because I think that she's a very great artist. And I think that does, there are a lot of shining moments and a lot of moments on this album that just show her skill as an MC. And that's the one thing I will say about her is her music may not be super flashy all the time. And her flow might not be, I guess how I would say super flashy, or there's, but she is very technically sound and does have an established presence. And you do get that from her when she raps. And you do get that from her a lot of the times on this album. So, yeah, that's just a little background information. She's from North Carolina, so if, you listen to this record and you do like it, there's tons of material to go back to. And I think that's wonderful. So, yeah.
For sure. So what I thought of the album, I guess, starting with the first track here.
Laila's Wisdom. Laila is the name of her grandmother who had passed away. This song is produced by Knots.
Okay.
So
so it's definitely interesting. It's a title track of the album, the opener. And right away, stupidly good intro.
Absolutely.
Such a good first track. It has an instrumental that inspires movement and power. It's hard not to bob your head to this one. And the lyrics are filled with an extremely interesting flow and nuggets of cool lyrics. Some notable lines that I personally loved are like, you gonna be the difference between McDonald's, Burger King, and Whole Foods.
You know what? And I made a note about that because I love that line, because another thing that I think Rapsody does well is she has very meaningful lines that are easily digestible.
Yes, very easily digestible.
So when you hear it, you don't have to, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing. So don't think that I'm saying one is better than the other to listeners. But when we reviewed the Milo album, there was a lot we had to go and like look up and kind of go through and say, okay, he's referencing something here. He's, and that's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that is bad, but also there's something to be said with, the straightforwardness of lines like that, of like, here it is. McDonald's, like, you're gonna be the difference between McDonald's, Burger King, and Whole Foods. You know what she's saying. It's easy to digest, and it is a very powerful line
for sure. Also, this song is interesting because she maintains a very extended rhyme scheme while still saying a lot within those boundaries. With the first 12 bars using the same rhyme, which that Whole Foods rhyme is actually one of those. And that's a technique and style that I've always loved. I've loved when rappers just take a rhyme and run with it as long as they can without being too ridiculous. And she does that really well. She doesn't overdo it, but she gives you all these lines and all of them say something. And that's really cool. I love the Whole Foods line. Also, one of my other favorite lines is, I never signed paperwork without reading the clauses. My parents worked way too hard to get no credit for it. And I was just like, that. I just love that. I just love like what she's saying there. And then also one more line that's just kind of like a funny line that's also, of course, referencing more important things. They say we 3/5 human while the rest of me is an Autobot.
Yeah,
like, I couldn't help
nice.
but like, you have to like shake your head and laugh at the same time.
Yeah, it was really good. So I love this track as an opener.
For sure. I absolutely am in love with this as an opener as well. I don't think they could have put something better in there.
I agree.
Really bold choice, making a title track as well.
And again, like I said, she does a very good job at establishing her presence as an MC. Her delivery, her charisma, her voice is, when she's rapping, you're listening.
Yeah, for sure. The next track is Power featuring Kendrick Lamar.
Produced by Ninth Wonder.
Solely Ninth Wonder. And also Lance, is that Ski or Sky? I'm guessing it's Sky.
Skywalker. Lance Skywalker.
So Lance Skywalker and Kendrick Lamar both on the track.
Lance Skywalker does the chorus.
Yes.
And Kendrick does verse 3. I do like this track. I think this, and it's kind of crazy because you can kind of feel that this album and certain songs kind of have a To Pimp a Butterfly Kendrick influence in them. I think this is one of those tracks. I don't think it's a bad thing. I will say though, that the first verse was a little rough for me. It felt like she was kind of trying to fit a verse in here. And so at some moments in time, I don't have any lines, but at some moments in time, like it feels like the cadence is a little off. And you're like, okay. But you get to verse 2 and then she goes back to just rapping her ass off. So it's like, okay. So that first one, to me, that first verse was a little weak, but her second verse definitely comes on strong. And I love, love, love this instrumental. It is oozing with feeling.
To me, the title matches the beat.
Yes.
It's got this really driving bass line and this head bob drum beat. And it's just, you feel empowered by the instrumental. And the song itself has a very interesting structure, beginning with our chorus. And I do like the chorus because it got this creative interplay between Rapsody and Lance Skywalker.
Yep.
And then it takes an interesting turn where after the second verse, we're given almost like a different chorus, which kind of adds vitality to what could have been a song that got boring. And then we get to Kendrick Lamar's verse, and pun fully intended, damn. Like,
for real. This is the note that I wrote for this. Kendrick is Kendrick on this song. End of story. Like he's Kendrick.
His verse is incredibly animated, lyrically dense, and matched with a dynamic and engaging flow. And he somehow steals the show on an already great song.
Yes.
And Kendrick, his last bar, I just think sums up his larger than life attitude and swagger that just captivates me as a listener. And it's and I'm all in all happy none of y'all can fathom who Kendrick is. The only one that ever did wrote the book of Genesis. Like,
right.
And
like,
it's just so bold, so charismatic. I just absolutely wowed by his verse.
Like, it's just because that flow, like, or that verse has its own ride. Like, his build up at the beginning is like super technical and dry. He's like, let's talk about power. Let's talk about yours and ours. And dude, all that stuff. And it's like, cool. And then he gets to the point where he's like, I'm in Jamaica. You know what I mean? Me hair long. Let's celebrate air raid. You're like, oh.
It's so animated. And it's just, he has so much character in this one verse that it's insane. And I mean, his
nuts.
verse kills it. Absolutely kills
Kendrick is Kendrick. Like,
and it's funny because Rapsody had some notes about the song,
which I did appreciate. That if you go to Genius, it does.
It's pretty much all the lyrics are verified by Rapsody, and Rapsody even has some commentary on the
songs, which is very, very nice.
Really,
because
really cool.
Then you're actually kind of going, getting that direct. This is what the artist was talking about,
for sure. She made some notes about how when she originally was looking for the Kendrick features, she sent him like 5 different tracks, and this is the one that he chose. He was working on Damn at the time,
okay.
And which is why you get some of those vibes on here. It just makes sense given the writing style.
It does have, given his last couple of releases, given what Damn was, it does make sense that he would choose this song, this instrumental.
And it was even funny because she was like, she didn't know what the album he was working on because it was not a lot of details out yet. She just knew he was working on his next project. But when Damn came out and they were all one-word titles, she was like, oh, that's funny. He chose the one-word title song.
Right.
Really cool. And then this song does what quite a few of the songs do. They give us like a tiny little interlude at the end of the song to introduce us to the next tune, which is Chrome, parentheses, like ooh. A track for me, the first half really felt a little lackluster and was shaping up to be one of my least favorite tracks. However, it makes a strong musical change starting in the second verse, and it's at this point the song becomes smooth and much more likable. And while there is this drastic change, it still feels connected together between the two parts thanks to the lyrics that recall and build upon the concepts introduced in the first half of the song.
Right.
And while this still is not my favorite track by a long shot, there's something to be said about the creativity in the writing that creates the sense of cohesiveness between the two musical ideas expressed in the song.
Yes.
So there's a lot to appreciate in the tune, even though I'm not the biggest fan of it, especially the first half.
Yeah, the first half is a little rough.
It was just okay.
I do like this track. And I feel that, like you were kind of alluding to, that the second half is what makes this track better. The first half, and I do kind of like the instrumental and do kind of like the direction we're going to. Like, once the second half kind of comes in, it's like, okay, there was a point to it all, and you kind of see it as one piece, and you're like, okay, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
But had that first part just been its own track, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a decent track. Like I said, there's things to appreciate it, even if I don't necessarily love it. Then we have Pay Up.
Oh, I meant to say, Chrome was produced by Cash and Crisis.
Cool.
All right. And then this next one, Pay Up, also Cash and Crisis.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's interesting.
Which is very interesting.
Yeah, they're very, very different. Because Pay Up, to me is one of the most fun tunes on the whole album.
Absolutely.
The lyrics build this narrative of a lazy dude living off of like a successful woman who's paying the bills, etc. And the fact that this paints like a full picture really allows for the engagement to move beyond just being excited by the cool beat, which it is a really interesting beat. I love the drum patterns and
the funk in the bass line.
For sure.
About it.
Oh my gosh. Such a cool beat that's hard not to like, jerk
kinda,
your body
when
to.
I first heard it, I was walking to class at school and I was just like bobbing my head and trying not to like move my entire body because I knew I was in public, but I'm like, this jams.
Oh yeah.
And I do like that she does paint the story. She talks, her verse 1's more about the gold digger, the verse 2 is more about the lazy male. And I think, while this song lyrically isn't the best, it's all captured well. The verses do the song well, the beat does the song well, the hook does the song well. And as a whole theme, of what she was trying to say, the whole thing does a very good job at it.
For sure.
And it just, again, just that instrumental is like making it bold and italicized and exclamation point, like,
and underlined.
Just
for
it's
sure.
So good. I do love this track. Very fun. I don't think she's really, again, not being like super lyrically dense or whatever, but like she has something she wants to say. She makes that point. She makes it very clear. And I think that kind of helps out because now you're not in a position to where you have to like pay attention to the lyrics and the beat at the same time. You can just vibe to the beat and just take it all in and not have to like focus out on anything. You can just listen to the song and take it in. And that's really nice.
Absolutely. And Rapsody definitely focuses less on being poetic or quippy and focuses a lot more on just building a narrative within the song, which is still creative in its own right. And I absolutely love the chorus and the structure of the song, the progression, and the fact that the song ends before dragging on beyond necessity. This clocks in at just over like 3 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't overstay its welcome.
For sure. Now, there is one thing about the song, though, that I cannot stand.
Okay.
And it's the completely out of tune guitar that plays throughout the whole song.
Oh.
It could have been so cool. And it is cool in some parts, but I'm not a fan of the overly dry tone with little to no compression on the guitar track. It just sounds like they recorded it direct and then didn't do anything with it. I can get over that though, but it's every time a chord is played, it's so painfully out of tune, and it's more noticeable in some parts than others, especially near the end of the song when you have more musical elements there and the guitar's playing, it's just like clashing with things because it's not in tune. And for me, it becomes highly distracting and puts down an otherwise really, really fun song.
Oh.
And I do like the song, but next time you listen to the track, listen at that guitar.
And now I'm mad because next time I listen to the track, I'm going to hear that. And I'm like,
Yeah, especially near the end when he's playing some chords, they're so not in tune. And it bugs me so much. And it makes me sad. It makes me sad because, like I said, really fun song. Just that guitar, it's hard, really hard. Moving on to track 5, which is Ridin' featuring GQ.
Produced by Eric G and Ninth Wonder. I did not particularly care for this track.
Okay.
In between, it's kind of weird because I think Rapsody does her thing. I think GQ does his thing, but to me, nothing really sticks out about it. It's kind of just, you're kind of like chill, low energy hip hop track, but it's like, okay, that's, for me, that was really about it. The outro was kind of weird to me. And then also being squashed between 2 tracks that I enjoy, which is Pay Up and Sassy. Like, it's just, it was kind of a weird break between energy. Maybe if it was one of those things that it was somewhere else on the album, it would have felt a little different, but Riding was just kind of, she definitely does get introspective, which is one thing that I do love about her as an artist, as an MC, is she, you know, kind of will take these looks at herself and her life and kind of look around and see everything that's going on and kind of observe.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, just something about it just didn't really stick with me. And I think it was just that low energy kind of feel. It didn't really have a lot of staying power to me.
That definitely makes sense. I don't think for me it was a hugely memorable track either. One thing I did appreciate is that it's at this point that we're returning more to an emotional delivery when we've been kind of having fun for the last couple tracks. So we're returning to an emotional delivery with Rapsody apparently detailing some issues with a family member in the first verse.
Right.
And then you again have that really introspective chorus. We end up with a deep and engaging track that maintains its movement through primarily its very ethereal instrumental. So while a lot of the words don't necessarily stick out, I'm still kind of moving with the beat, even if it's not it doesn't exactly provide as much of an active listening experience as some of the other tunes. It's a little bit more passive in the listen. But we get to GQ's verse, and I do really like his verse. I like his voice, and I think his flow matches this song expertly. However, overall, I think the lyrical direction of the song lacks a more specific direction that all the previous cuts had.
Yeah.
This song is a little all over the place as far as the lyrical subject matter. And it's very few songs go this far from a specific direction, and this is one of them. That's probably why it's not quite so memorable, because there's not a lot of elaboration on one topic, but rather it kind of just seems like verses put to a pretty cool beat.
Yeah.
Again, not a bad song, and I do like GQ's verse.
I do as well. Yeah. The rappers do their thing. Lean in the mic. They do their thing. Like,
just among the other really cool tracks on this record, it's not a standout.
Right.
Which is
feels
okay.
a little less focused.
I mean, that it's kind of a good thing that like this song isn't bad by any means. It's just not one of my favorites. And that's the thing, is like, it's because it's competing with a lot of really great tracks. Mm-hmm. And that's a good problem to have. That's a really good problem to have.
Absolutely.
Moving on to, oh boy, Sassy.
I love this track.
Same. This track is so good.
Produced by Eric G. I love this record. It's got feeling, it's got personality, it's got bounce. And one thing that I do enjoy, because Rapsody is a very powerful, very introspective, very great MC. I love when she just gets a little braggadocious. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing that I love about this record, is she's coming through and she's giving you the brag bars. Oh, and it's just like, this is great. Like,
for sure. Like, to me, just like Power, this song couldn't match its title more perfectly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Rapsody creates a track that is somehow buttery smooth in both musical and lyrical delivery, yet creates a sense of empowerment that's infectious. This song is unapologetic as the poem Still I Rise that it's apparently based off of. And the whole song is just a statement of being proud and owning up to it. It's such a cool track with so much to offer. And it's a track that like I love to go back to because it makes me feel good. And like I said, I love that she's being unapologetic and a little braggadocious. And she's not doing so. She's doing it in a way that's a response to there's this kind of notion that you have to be a certain degree of humble. Like, you can't be proud of yourself.
Right. And I think, and the one thing that, which is the really cool thing about Rapsody, I feel, is when I listen to her rap, I feel that I am, actually listening to a human being rap, in the sense of sometimes when people rap, they can sound like caricatures. In a sense, when she gets braggadocious, it's not in this like, oh, I have all this money, I have all these cars or whatever. Yeah. She's just like, yeah, y'all know me. Y'all know that I'm one of the best. My track record proves it. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, this is great.
Oh yeah. And it's
also like everyday brags that just like, make you kind of laugh, where she was like, I have Netflix. You can watch the movies on me. And I'm just like, yo.
It's seriously, it's such a great tune and easily one of my favorites on the record.
Agreed. Love this song.
I can't say enough positive things about it. So I guess we'll move on to Nobody featuring Anderson .Paak, Black Thought,
Pac.
and Moonchild.
Anderson .Paak.
Pac?
Yeah, Anderson P-A-A-K. Well, .P-A-A-K.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I read that wrong.
No problem. Produced by Crisis and Ninth Wonder.
This is like the fourth time that I've read something completely wrong.
Oh, no problem.
Okay.
I just I always laugh because I love Anderson .Paak. In his album, he talks about how, you know, it's Anderson and then there's a period before like capital P Pac. Mm-hmm. And he always talks about like how like that's just him being meticulous and showing like how much you care like about him or his movement or whatever. He's like, don't forget that dot, you paid for it. Like that's one of the lines that like stuck out from this album. It just makes me laugh. So
that's funny.
So I just had to share that little quick bit of knowledge. I also love this track.
Yeah, me too. Like I was wowed by this track, and I think this is my favorite lyrical offering from Rapsody, because her first verse had my jaw on the floor, and her second verse also blows me away. She utilizes unique and engaging rhyme patterns, has quips on quips on quips, and she still maintains an extremely focused and thought-provoking lyrical direction. Easily one of my favorite lyrical moments on the whole album.
I think she does a better job at being introspective here than she did on writing.
Yeah, especially because this one has a lot more focus to it.
Absolutely.
Like the fact that she is so technically proficient, yet still so focused. Like this feels like I'm blown away by her verses on this track. Both of her verses, especially her first verse, though, are just so Supreme. Insanely good.
And then we have my man's Black Thought. In parenthesis, I have in my notes, the greatest MC of all time. Listen, okay, so Black Thought is the MC of the Roots, that band. Which, I mean, people now know him for being on Jimmy Fallon's show, but they have a huge, extensive discography. He's a great MC. Personally, my favorite MC of all time.
He kills it. I mean, he adds even more praiseworthy lyrics to this already more than quotable track.
He comes through with the wise man bars. Mm-hmm. This is why I love when rappers turn 40. Okay? Like, because now we are getting perspective from a guy who's experienced, who's lived life, who's been through a huge number of things. And every time I'm listening to more recent Black Thought features, he's always just bringing his best to the table. He's sharp. He's refined. Mm-hmm. Like, if I didn't know who he was, I would have no idea that, you know, he has been rapping for 20 something years.
Yeah.
And he references that. He says, I'm on year 23 or 4. Like, it just...
Yeah, the 12 years a slave, I'm on year 23 or 4. Like,
exactly.
That was already just such a cool line.
Such a great line. And so this track, I think it might be my favorite track on this record.
I think it might be mine too, because I just can't get over this song. And Anderson .Paak also nails his chorus and his bridge delivery. Like, I really like his voice. It's so unique, and it just is so engaging too.
Absolutely. I'm glad that we get double dosage of Anderson .Paak on this album. Same. I also love the thing he does later in the albums, but we'll get to that. But this track is so focused and so refined, and all the verses are tight, the chorus is tight, the bridges are tight,
and then we have Moonchild and the outro, and then we also have this rapped interlude that, I mean, makes the end of the song feel purposeful. Even though it kind of just serves as a transition into the next song, it still just works so well and provides such a smooth transition. And it kind of shows that these interludes aren't just there to be interludes, but they serve as not only great transitions, but also to express more musical and lyrical ideas.
Yep.
And you see that on the outro of this track. And even though this a 7-minute song, because you do have the 3 features on this track and several musical ideas and just dense lyrics. It owns up to those 7 minutes.
Yeah.
It owns up to those 7 minutes. It is the longest track on the record, and it deserves to be because it's so good. And so I'd have to agree with you. I think this is my favorite track on the record as well.
Yeah, easily. I love that track.
Next we have Black and Ugly,
produced by Ninth Wonder,
featuring BJ the Chicago Kid. Also
love him.
To me, this song is I really like this track as well.
Yeah. It's got a lot of soul to it.
For sure. It's another empowering song in a similar vein as Sassy. It dives into the struggles of being a Black woman trying to make a name for herself, and how people judge her by her appearance that people don't usually do to men. The song serves as a direct response to comments she has received and is punctuated by the chorus stating, "Yeah, they call me black and ugly, but I go so hard and make the whole world love me." Mm-hmm. Again, we're getting that taste of her being a little braggadocious, but this way, and it's more of a defense position of just like, yeah, you guys say all this crap, but now you guys are following me.
Right.
So it's kind of like she's earned it. She's showing, look where I am. Doesn't matter what you said.
And another track where she establishes presence. Mm-hmm. One thing that I thought was really, really funny is she referenced a Kendrick verse on here to kind of, again, with that braggadociousness, says, "'Cause I don't smoke crack, mother, I sell it," which is a reference to Kendrick Lamar's verse on that Big Sean song Control years ago, Control, that started a lot of controversy because he name dropped a bunch of rappers saying, it was that whole thing where he was just like, "Oh, I plan to murder all of you," and he just name drops a bunch of MCs. So if you haven't had that verse and you are very, you like hip hop music, that verse I think is very, very important to rap in the modern era. But going back to Rapsody, I like that she references this because Rapsody is not shy in telling you that she believes that she is one of the best MCs out making music right now.
And she's proving it.
Yeah, exactly. And you after you listen to her records, after you listen to just this record, even if you don't agree, she makes a strong argument.
Oh, yeah. Like, she comes out hard. And I mean, I just love this track for a lot of the same reasons I loved Sassy. And not to say that those songs are interchangeable, because I think each song employs a unique perspective and attitude. But I mean, to have these 3 tracks in a row that are all so good.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yes, that's definitely awesome. Then we have You Should Know, which is actually produced by Ninth Wonder. This is the lead single, and it features the famous Busta Rhymes.
Okay, so this song,
I'm just going to come out and say I think this is my least favorite song on the entire album.
I would agree. It's tough because, but I will say that this album is 14 tracks. This album is very long, and by the time you get to this point, like, I would remember just kind of like doing my notes and looking at the track list. I was like, whew, we still got a little to go. Mm-hmm. So I will say, for me, there was a little bit of album fatigue here. I will say that she does something that at first I was kind of like, to kind of combat this, but we'll get there when we get there. This song, it's another track, and get a little braggadocio, this and that, but it kind of felt like I was listening. By the time Busta Rhymes comes in, I felt like I was listening to 2 tracks just kind of smashed together, and it's like, okay, but I understand, because this whole album is kind of using outros / interludes to kind of introduce the next concept. But yeah, this song, again, not a lot of staying power for me. It just kind of...
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned how it feels like 2 songs smashed together, because that's part of my opinion as well. So off the right when it started, I'm really vibing with the beat. I wasn't necessarily feeling album fatigue at this point because I was just hit with 3 really cool tracks.
See, that's the thing though, is I was hit with 3 really cool tracks, and then I was like, oh, that was a lot of energy to kind of process and digest, and then you come to this and you're like, all right.
Well, first verse, Rapsody offers a much more slower, more relaxed flow. She comes off with loads of swagger that matches the beat. Mm-hmm. However, it's really not the most impressive offering from her. In fact, it's probably one of the least impressive verses that Rapsody has on the record, in my opinion, is this first verse. However, in the second verse, kind of shows me why this was more of a lead single, because Rapsody's completely unrelenting delivery with every line just filled to the brim, which does make for a very pleasant dichotomy with the first verse of the tune, and it feels very purposeful. And then the song takes a drastic musical change, which, of course, at this point on the record is not anything new, but this is probably the most awkward and inorganic change on the entire album. The music transition's fine, but the change in tandem with Busta Rhymes' verse makes it feel like it's not the same song. First of all, Busta Rhymes feels so forward in the mix that it's a little off-putting. Combine that with his completely out of left field subject matter and delivery, and the entire second portion of the song just feels out of place. Really not a fan of the feature and the way it's being presented.
Right.
I don't really get what they were going for with the feature. I really don't like the entire second half of the song with Busta Rhymes. I think his verse is kind of weird.
Like, it started out feeling like, and I thought it was okay, and
like Busta Rhymes shows a lot of character, but then like some of the lines are just like a little awkward and weird.
Like just kind of okay.
They're getting a little too carnal in description, and it's like that doesn't feel like what the song was even about.
Right.
And I didn't get it. My only side note is that, can we get a Busta Rhymes audiobook, please? Because
I would listen to that man read things. Like,
I don't want him to feature on this album, but I would love it if he just like read me Harry Potter at night.
Right. he does very much have a distinct voice. So like when it's Busta Rhymes, it's Busta Rhymes, and it's like, okay, cool. But and even though I think she did a good job with the flow on the second verse, like you pointed out, it just kind of, I don't know, for me, it just kind of doesn't sit up there with all the other tracks.
No, it's definitely my least favorite track, which is so interesting because it is the lead single.
Right.
Which, to me, I don't think this is representative of the whole record.
And it doesn't really feel like a single either.
No, it doesn't, with the huge musical change. And again, Busta Rhymes just feels so awkwardly forward in the mix.
Yeah.
That is just like, it feels like I'm watching him announce over the song.
Right, like that's what I was going to say. It felt like the speaker was like off in the distance playing the instrumental, and he was across from me.
Like, he was like right in my ear.
Right. Just kind of talking to me while the music was like being played on like a Bluetooth speaker across like the foyer. Like,
it's true. It's true. It's so weird. And I think that's probably why everything comes across, or at least part of why everything comes across so awkwardly.
Yeah.
So just really, really not this is the one track I can say I think I just straight up dislike. It's not a song I'm really interested in going back to.
Right.
But moving on to the trifecta of relationships.
Oh man.
We have track 10, a roller coaster jam called Love, which features Music Soul Child and Gwen Bunn.
Produced by Ninth Wonder.
Again.
I think he does the
majority of
not only of the majority of the songs on this record, but he does a majority of the latter end of these songs. I think only one of these songs are not, like, in the latter half of this record, I believe one of these songs are not produced by him. And by the latter half, I mean, we're kind of, even though at first, like, these relationship songs were kind of weird and out of place, I think it does sort of for me, help combat the album fatigue, because now we're kind of getting the beginning and end of a new idea, which, take it as it may. I'm kind of torn between the two of like, I don't know if I like this movement at the end of this record or if I just think it doesn't necessarily need to be there. While I do think these next three songs do play well off of each other, I'm trying to figure out like if they should have a place on this record. Because I do enjoy these songs. Like, I love A Roller Coaster Jam Called Love. I do like this song. Mm-hmm. It's, I do like hip hop love records, and I think it's, very nice. It's kind of in that sort of vein where it's just like, okay, this is a love song, and, it's got some soul to it, and it's got some feelings, a lot of R&B elements, and then she's, rapping about love, which, okay, yeah. All right, I enjoy this record. It just kind of, I don't know, this whole relationship movement in scape of the album overall just kind of feels a little weird.
I will say I didn't necessarily feel that same way. In fact, I thought this combated any sense of fatigue, and I
completely agree.
I completely agree. Like that usual sense where at this point in the record, it's normally where we would have a dip in engagement but for me, because we do have this completely different, almost entirely new objective for what she's going for in the songwriting and what she wants you to feel. It adds vitality and maintains my interest, especially because this song, it really shows, because we mentioned previously how she has really digestible lines. This song really capitalizes on her being able to do so. And we have, honestly, really one of the most insightful and honest songs about relationships and love that I've heard in a long time. Mm-hmm. It's hard not to relate to this song.
And like I said, I didn't say that, these songs are bad. Mm-hmm. I like this song. And like I did say before, having this kind of movement does combat album fatigue. I just like, it was kind of one of those things, just like, okay, do I like it? Do I not like it? Mm-hmm. Do I like it? Do I not like it? I'm leaning towards the like, because it does combat that album fatigue. Mm-hmm. But I do think there's a point. There is one of these songs I don't particularly care for, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I guess we'll get there. I don't really have too much more to say about this. Just, I really enjoy the lyrics. I love the insight that she has into relationships. And just the extremely relatable, just, I need my space kind of thing. Really great instrumental. Great delivery, as we've come to expect at this point on the record. A really solid tune to me. I love the name of the track too.
Yeah.
It's very fitting. Then we have You Used to Love Me featuring Terrace Martin.
Produced by Ninth Wonder. Terrence Martin does, instrumentals, trumpet, saxophone, stuff like that.
Okay.
I think he does a great job. He also sings, I believe. This song, though, I like it in the sense of being in the grouping of these three songs. Well, I feel like it's not necessarily a song that wowed me. Mm-hmm. I think it's very straightforward. Does progress the narrative of these three songs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about it.
For me, I mean, I loved the transition between A Roller Coaster Jam and You Used to Love Me. I think it's one of the most effective transitions on the entire album. It just flows perfectly from the last song, which serves it well because its subject matter is, of course, again, about relationships. This time capturing a moment of a relationship ending and the mixed feelings within that. And while it may be short, it's, again, a highly relatable piece exemplifying the same honesty as Roller Coaster. But part of me wonders why this isn't attached to the end of the last song like we get on a lot of other cuts on the album, where we have a drastic musical change that's maybe expanding on the idea or whatever. This seems like it could have been that, because while this song by itself is pretty cool, it is a very short tune and certainly benefits from having the previous track.
Yes.
So I wonder if you were to shuffle this album, if this track would really be half as effective, because I think you almost need that previous cut to give this song more meaning and more cohesiveness.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that's part of the reason why I was in limbo about this, because on a straight listen through, these 3 songs do combat album fatigue, but on shuffle, you know, they kind of need each other in order to flow.
The biggest example is You Used to Love Me and Roller Coaster Jam. Those need to be placed one after another.
Yes.
Because You Used to Love Me just doesn't have enough about it to stand alone as a song. I think the instrumental is highly engaging and everything, and it doesn't last very long, but I don't think it would have any stick value if it wasn't preceded by Roller Coaster.
Right.
And it just makes me really wonder, because clearly Rapsody has been entirely unafraid of expressing new musical ideas in the second half of a song. And I feel like Roller Coaster could have done that into You Used to Love Me. It feels like it belongs at the end of it, especially with the smoothest musical transition. In fact, it's probably smoother than some of the interlude transitions. So the fact that it is its own track is a very interesting decision to me, and I'm not sure if it's the right one, because while in a straight through listen, it doesn't really affect much of anything, and you just understand you're listening to a new track. But again, if you don't have the luxury of listening to the album front to back, then you're going to kind of lose out on some of the impact on what could be a really great footnote to a Roller Coaster Jam. So
I agree.
I kind of wish it was combined with track 10. But in a straight through listen, I'm really liking the track. It doesn't stand as well on its own, but you know, it is what it is. I think as we come into track 12 here, which is Knock on My Door, again featuring BJ the Chicago Kid.
The song's adorable.
Is this also produced by Ninth Wonder?
Yes.
So this song, I think, doesn't necessarily need to be tied to the other 2 songs, especially because one thing that I thought of. So this song is again on the subject of love, this time referencing new love or new interest and the exciting feelings surrounding it. Given that, as far as like if you were to treat these 3 tracks as a connected narrative, which you don't have to, but if you want to imagine it as such, you could place this song before Roller Coaster Jam and the narrative makes sense.
Wow, I didn't think about that, but like now that you brought that up, definitely. Like,
because it's talking about this new love, this new interest. And then, of course, Roller Coaster Jam is when you're in the middle of a relationship. But you could also take the narrative in its current order, where you get out of one relationship and you're kind of maybe bittersweet, whatever. And then you kind of have a new interest and your feelings reset. So it's one of those things where it works either way, which is why on a shuffle listen, it totally would make sense to not have this necessarily connected to tracks 10 and 11. But 10 and 11 need to be together. Yeah, absolutely. 10 and 11 need to be together, but track 12, Knock on My Door, does not need to be that way.
And I do enjoy this record. I kind of got a nice little, like I said, the song's like kind of adorable. It's got a
really is, and I think
such a vibe to it. And
absolutely,
I like how her third verse is kind of like a conversation.
Absolutely, that's honestly like my favorite part of the song. I mean, this song itself shines, because it moves away from being completely introspective. Where like the last 2 tracks where we're very in her head, these are more conversational, and it uses like show don't tell storytelling, painting a very raw picture and using lyrics as a one-sided dialogue that gives us an amazing sense of character and emotion. And again, you mentioned the last verse. It's like she's just having a casual conversation that just happens to rhyme. Yeah,
and that's that was really cool. I do love the sort of, thought process she was having, and things that are relatable. Like she had this line where she's like, I hope you see me in these leggings. Oh, I was raised better. And I thought that was funny because everybody has those moments where they're like, developing a crush on somebody or whatever, and you're going to see them. So let me wear this certain kind of outfit that accentuates certain features. So
Absolutely.
Even though I may not necessarily say, oh, I hope you see me in these leggings, I did have moments, in my life where I'm just like, yo, okay, I'm going to go see,
I'm going to wear my good shirt and I'm going to do my hair good.
Yeah, I'm going to wear this shirt. I'm going to like pull my dreads back and throw on the glasses, or, you know what I mean? Something like that. We've all had moments like that. And so it was very, very, I enjoy this record like thoroughly.
Oh yeah. And
or song.
Also, and especially that last verse, you feel her laugh and smile through the delivery, and it creates again this vivid image. And I couldn't be more impressed with the lyrical direction of this tune, because it really does shy away from just speaking about things, and this time you're just getting to experience the story and the narrative, and it shows a really effective way of telling a story.
And not only that third verse, where it's just like she's having the way that she is writing, you can kind of it feels like you can kind of fill in the blanks of what is being said to her.
Exactly.
And she does a magnificent job at that. Of like, I don't necessarily need this to be a song where somebody like is actually saying the rhyme parts in like their end of the conversation. It's like based on her reactions and based on what she's saying, it's like, oh, I can kind of infer what's being said to her.
It's a one-sided dialogue with a limited perspective, but it's done so in such a way that the rest of the conversation is implied, and you get such a full idea. And I can just imagine her sitting there with a dude and talking and having this conversation, and it's in there in my head, and it's so effective that it's like, I'm so impressed by this.
This verse is genius.
It really is. This song is absolutely genius, especially this third verse, and it's definitely one of my favorite tracks on the record because of its extraordinarily creative use of storytelling. Wow. Just wow. Yeah.
Such a good song.
Yeah. Moving on to Ooh Wee featuring Anderson .Paak.
Again.
My
produced
first
by
note,
Crisis.
Produced by Crisis. My first note was, ooh wee, this song is 60% of the chorus. I kind of wanted to dislike this song. I'm not going to lie.
You wanted to.
Because it really is like 80% chorus.
Yeah.
It's very repetitive, but at the same time, it's really infectious.
See, and that's the thing, as I was alluding to earlier, I love this record. It's a little bit, one more time with the braggadocio bars from Rapsody, and then Anderson .Paak, we kind of get more of him.
Yeah.
And his voice and his charisma kind of adds this sort of, and it's infectious. It kind of adds a little bit of a swagger to it, and you're just like, oh, okay,
for sure. And it's like, it's got such a weird song structure approach. It starts out with a chorus that lasts like a full minute before giving us just 8 bars of a verse, and then going right back into the chorus. And it's so weird because it's like teasing the verses instead. But Anderson .Paak has such a unique timbre and attitude in his delivery that it makes it so catchy and so enjoyable. And he saves what otherwise would be a huge sleeper song for me. But like, he really nails it on this song. And even though it's kind of repetitive, it's like, it does have that swagger to it. That's it's got that balance. You kind of got a vibe to the song.
And I think that's part of the reason why this song probably did make the cut, because like you said, you wanted to dislike the song, but you heard it, and every time you're just like, yo, I feel the same way when I listen to the song.
Yeah.
Because I was like you, where I was just like, when the song first came through, I was like, okay, I guess. But then like, just listen to it more, and you're like, yo, like, and that's the thing and that's the thing. All of these songs where she does get braggadocious, and these songs that do have more life to them, all just kind of, make you bob your head, like so infectious, so catchy, and it's so good. I love this song. It kind of it's nice because it kind of re-engages you real fast after we had like the love narrative, I guess, that movement. Sure. It kind of just pulls you right back in.
Exactly.
And then we got one last piece for you, and then that's it. So I guess,
and I think that structure made the last half like keep me awake and for an active listen.
I agree. This song or this album, even though I did say earlier that there were points where I did feel album fatigue, does a very good job at kind of keeping you engaged.
For sure.
By introducing new concepts or introducing the narrative that was those 3 love songs. And then after you're finished with that, let's engage you with one more like kind of bounce song. And then we're going to hit our last track. And then you're going to, finish.
Exactly. Speaking of the last track, we have track 14, Jesus Coming.
Produced by Ninth Wonder.
Featuring Amber. Is that Navran? Or?
I believe so.
Okay. I so apologize for any mispronunciation. So this song...
This song is a finisher.
Immediately... So my thoughts are... I'm not 100% sold on this track, although there are so many things that I appreciate about it. I think I need to listen to it more, because the lyrics are probably some of the more dense ones that she has to offer on this album. One thing I really, really appreciate is Amber's voice is, first of all, extremely beautiful and fits the track so well. But I think the most interesting part about the song is the significance of the chorus that Amber sings, as well as the Time to Go sample.
The sampling.
That loops through the track as Rapsody continues with her verse. And she employs the great storytelling elements displayed throughout the previous songs in the album and presents a very vivid and almost disturbing picture that resonates in a lasting way. And as she paints more of her picture, these repeated sentiments of the chorus and the sample bear more and more significance, and kind of change from simple beauty to almost complicated and reflective.
Yes.
And even though it's like the same line sung in the same way, it feels different as the song goes on because you're given additional context. While this may not be my favorite track on the record, it's easily the most somber. That's for sure.
Agreed.
In my initial reaction to the song was that it was kind of a strange closer for an album who never got this dark before this point on the album. But in subsequent listens and further reflection, I did kind of change my mind a little bit. Because it's the fact that it was the darkest point on the record combined with its jarring and abrupt hard cut at the end of the tune that makes this track have an emotional impact that lingers for long after the song is over. And it's a really bold closer that I think accomplishes what it's supposed to. And while, like I said, it is jarring, but it wouldn't have near as the effect if it wasn't that way. It is very just kind of like, we just got out of ooh-wee, right?
Yeah.
And then it's just like, okay, this voice is beautiful. Okay, I'm depressed. Okay, wow, this is really hard to listen to. And then it just kind of ends without like musical resolve.
Yeah.
And so you kind of like you're left still tense after, and I know that's purposeful. And I like after the song, and I just kind of need to breathe a little bit.
Right.
It's just kind of like
I agree. Like it was because Spotify does the thing where like one song ends if you finish listening to an album, it'll take you to like the artist radio or something like that, or other tracks.
I turned that off.
Yeah, I should probably do that too. But it was just like that ended, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then it's something next. I'm like, no, I need you to stop. Like I have
can't
to pause it. And I'm like,
now.
I need a moment. Like
it's definitely intense. And like I said, I'm not sold on the song because it doesn't necessarily match a lot of the previous emotional output on the other tunes. And while, like I said, it's very effective, I just don't know that I like it.
Yeah.
And it is very lyrically dense, so I do probably need to spend a little bit more time with it. It is just kind of a hard listen because
I think she does a good job at, telling these tales and kind of painting the story. What I would have liked more because, you know, she had that mother's perspective. And then at the end of that verse, she had the daughter's perspective. I would have liked if she would have broken those into 2 verses and kind of spent a little more time in the daughter's perspective as well. Right. Because she made a note that she was kind of talking about like violence and crime and whatever. She made that note on Genius.
And she even stated that she could have gone on forever.
Right.
But like,
you know, and I understand that. I just felt like if we would have had a little bit more time, because she is telling tales and tackling the subject matter, I think that if we would have had a little more time with particularly that, instead of just like, okay, here's the mother's perspective, which kind of really got me like when you're listening to it, because you're watching this mother watch her daughter like about to die, and she's like, okay, let's go, like, you know, and you can hear it in her voice, and she did a very good job at that.
Yeah, she actually displays some like decent like acting abilities throughout this absolutely record.
And so it's like, you know, doing that in the theme and the sample is very, very, you know, very powerful. So I would have liked for her to break those up, and maybe not necessarily, you know, break those up into a verse 1 and a verse 2, but definitely spent more time in the daughter's perspective, you know what I mean? And kind of just do all that. So I thought that I do like this track. I do agree with you that it is a bold way to close. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if this album could have closed on ooh-wee like that, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
So
out of all the songs, that one makes sense as a closer for sure.
Absolutely. So, yeah. I would have liked to see, I would have personally liked something to be the closer that was a little more in the vein of the title track of Laila's Wisdom, you know, but I do still think that this is a bold, nice closer. I do like the way that it closes. It gives you something to think about.
For sure. It definitely resonates for a long time. And I think it makes the album a more memorable listen.
Yes.
Because of that. So, you know, I can't fault it.
Not at all. I understand.
So I guess moving on to general thoughts here. What were your general thoughts, I guess?
I liked this album. I like this album a lot. I do like that she was able to experiment a little bit more, kind of try different things. I do like that she was taking influences from other places. I think that this album has some very grand moments. The low moments on here for me, or songs that I don't like, are kind of few and far in between, in the sense of like, there's not a point where it's like, oh, 2 songs in a row that I don't like, or 3 songs in a row that I don't like. It's like, okay, here are these 3 songs, and then a song that I don't particularly care for, and then another handful of songs. At first, when I saw just the sheer number of songs, I got a little intimidated, but I do feel that she does a very good job of, you know, presenting new ideas to kind of keep you engaged and keep you from getting album fatigue, which is something that I kind of felt wasn't done before on the previous hip hop listen we did, or just in other albums where it's like by the time you get to the end, you're kind of feeling it a little bit and you're like, she does a good job at, keeping you engaged, introducing new ideas, and kind of keeping your attention. I think she brings very, very good bars for most of this album. I would say a good 90% of this album are fantastic bars. There are moments where I feel like things are a little weird, like on the first verse of Power, I felt like it was a little weaker of a verse, but there are always moments where she is establishing her presence and showing you why she's a fantastic MC. Yeah. And those are not in those moments where those weaker moments are a little sparse on this record. I do think that there are points where the interludes and the stuff like that, I'm like, okay, another one. Like, I know that she's transitioning from one musical thought to the next. But there are certain points where it just feels a little kind of hand-fisted in there, sort of like with the one with Busta Rhymes and everything.
Yeah.
So overall, I really enjoyed this record. So those are my general thoughts. What do you?
I'd have to say I mostly agree with you. I think one thing that Rapsody shows is she knows when to conclude a musical idea.
Yes.
With 3-minute song ending before it drags on. She has songs that introduce new musical ideas, building upon the previous ones, and adding necessary runtime to complete full idea, like you have with Nobody. And this album is probably the most consistent that we've reviewed so far.
I would agree.
I think it maintains a high level of engagement throughout the length of the record, fighting against nearly inevitable fatigue that often comes with an album that's 14 tracks and over an hour in length. She combats that really, really well. Rapsody proves that she's much more than a notable feature on a Kendrick Lamar song and presents herself as a strong force in modern rap. And I have to say, do not sleep on Rapsody because, oh my gosh, is she talented. This album proves it. She has swagger for days, bars for days. I'm highly impressed with this record, and I personally would call this record great. I would
agree. It's a great record.
Great album. My favorite we've reviewed so far, I'd say.
Really?
Out of the.
I mean, mine too, but yeah,
this is only 4 records in.
4 records deep, but no. When I was, I'm always thinking about our albums of the year list, and I'm like, this is I'm not saying it's number 1 because we still have much of a year to go, but I'm just like, this probably I could say it's definitely going to make the list because this is a very strong album. Oh,
very, very strong. So consistent, and it's delivering so many amazing tunes like Sassy, Nobody, Black and Ugly, Roller Coaster Jam, Knock on My Door, Half of Power. But yeah, such great songs, and I'm blown away by this album. I highly recommend checking it out if you're into modern rap. She is not one to sleep on.
And one thing that also we've spoken on this whole review is her relatability is incredible.
Oh yeah, very easy to digest, and it's hard not to be like, yes, I understand your sentiment and I feel the same.
Or I've been in situations like these.
Yeah.
Because it's not like she's saying, it's not a whole album about like everybody getting shot or here, check out my Lamborghini or whatever, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. So don't, I'm not going to be one of those cats that's like, oh, this is good rap and that's trash rap. No, but her relatability is incredible and it comes through. And to maintain relatability and still be as strong as a rapper as she is incredible.
Oh yeah. Like I truthfully like I said, one of the strongest forces right now. That phenomenal album. Please check it out. You can find it on our running Spotify playlist that has all the albums that we review. Give it a follow. That way you can be ahead of the game. You can always listen to the new album that we'll be reviewing. However, next week we won't be checking out an album, but a film. We will be checking out Gerald's Game, which you can find on Netflix. It is based off of a Stephen King book. We're going to be giving you our detailed review of that next week. If you want to keep track of us, go ahead and hit us up on our Facebook page. It's the best way to get in contact with us, facebook.com/mostlyexistential, or you can just search the Mostly Existential podcast on Facebook. Let us know what you thought of Laila's Wisdom. And if you have recommendations for other similar things, feel free to hit us up there as well. But yeah, we will be at you next week with the film Gerald's Game. Until then, we'll see you next time. Using the same baseline as an outro. All right, okay. I have hit the button.
So
the button is hit.
Honestly, that the worst happens to me when I read words, but I've never heard anyone say those words. So then I have to like think of what it potentially could be, like aspartame. I used to say aspartame. I don't know why.
Like it wasn't English.
You know what? I think maybe because you know that I love like linguistics and learning about languages and how they work. So I assume all words that I haven't seen before are just not English because English doesn't really have its own words like that. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, okay. And then somebody was like, you mean aspartame? And I was like, oh, but the thing is I've never heard it like used in a sentence. So it's like, I don't know what that's supposed to be. And English has no rules. Like,
for sure. See, like my frustration comes with someone when I'm talking with someone and it's like they forgot how it's pronounced, even though I've heard them pronounce it correct before. And so it's like you have the knowledge.
Yeah.
But then you just somehow totally forgot and then pronounced it wrong. And even after I've corrected them, never fixed. Like, and they'll just flip flop between it. And I'm like, literally, I've been talking to someone who I swear when she was reading things, it was like she was figuring out how to pronounce it for the first time every time.
Oh my goodness.
Like that's how it felt like to me. It felt like there was not that connection in her brain.
Oh no.
It was so weird. She also used to always say wonder instead of wander. So like instead of saying I wandered around, she would say I wondered around. I'm like, not the same. No, you can wonder about where you will wander.
Huh.
But like,
yeah.
And I
but you know what? I wonder how deep that is.
Because I wonder how deep that is.
Because it's like, I feel like there are some facts that we all have, and I can't think of one like off the top where it's gone so long unchecked that you're not going to unlearn it that way.
I guess, but like, I can't tell you how many times I pointed it out. Like, it was to the point where it was like every time I would explain the difference between those two.
Oh no.
Never fixed. I'm pretty sure she still says it to this day.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Like, so even when you spoke to her, there was no like pause of her like,
it was just straight up like, it was just straight up like, oh yeah, let's wander around somewhere. I'm like, it's wander.
Is she a non-native English? Is she a non-English
she couldn't
speaker?
be more native.
Oh, huh.
Like she's as white as they come. Like she has been in this country for many a year.
Oh boy. So, but I'm trying to like figure out how.
There's no rationalization here.
You're right.
I think it was probably just no one called her out on it.
Nobody said anything.
And then now it's just too late. And now she's forever stained.
Oh man. Also, so listeners, before it gets to that point, if you notice that your children are not saying the right things, do gently correct them.
Yeah. Just, you're
actually supposed to. I had a best friend in high school who her boyfriend at the time was named Nick, and her niece would say Mick, but then he would say, no, it's Nick. And then her family would be like, don't correct her. And it's like, but that's what you're supposed to do. And then she would call me Kitty, and I would be like, Kenny. And I would point to myself and say Kenny. Like, for some reason, I'm trying to teach something that doesn't speak how to speak. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about children. Anyway.
But I mean, it makes sense. If you just let them do that, then they're actually going to associate the two. Right. And then not have the connection made. And then just assume they're right. Because why would they not assume they're right if you never correct them and just like he internally?
Right. Like, yeah, it's cute, whatever. But it's like, no, a kitty is a baby cat. A Kenny is a person. Like,
yeah. Only sometimes interchangeable depending on the context.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes I can act like a kitty. Like, I'll just come into your house and like lay on top of your freshly dried towels. You know what I mean? Because they're warm, and just kind of circle up and just be there unbothered.